Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's video. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Modbo Boot Menu for the PS2. And if anybody out there has a Modbo 5 modded PS2, this is something you'll be able to use. It's a little utility which essentially acts as a quick launcher for various applications. It's completely free, and whilst the files are a little bit difficult to find, I have included them in the description below, so everything you need should be down there if you want to follow along. And if you don't know what it is, or you've forgotten, then we'll show you exactly what it is and how it works. We'll show you how you can update the included apps, we'll show you how you can replace the included apps, and then we'll go through a bit of troubleshooting just in case things aren't working quite as you'd expect. Now, for those of you who've had one of these machines for a time, you've probably got it set up like me, whereby the boot mode is set to auto, and therefore once you start it with nothing in the tray, and we'll do that now, the thing just starts up to the stock Sony browser. And as you can see, that's exactly what our machine goes and does. Now, we did a short video not too long ago, a few months back, where when these machines start up by default, when you first install the mod, this boot mode here, rather than being set to auto, by default on the Modbo 5 for some reason is set to mass storage. What that causes is, as we'll see in a second, is this message on the screen. So we get a loading boot menu, and then we'll end up with this unable to load config file error message. Now, obviously, when you first install these things, to people who don't know, it's a little bit disconcerting. But what that's actually trying to do is that is actually trying to load the Modbo boot menu, and that's just the default storage mode it tries to boot to. It tries to boot to mass storage rather than just automatically deciding what it needs to do, which is a bit of a weird one, but either way, that's the mode we're going to need it in to get the Modbo boot menu to actually work. So if you want to do this, then hold your triangle and circle buttons, reset the machine, set that boot mode to mass for mass storage, i.e. boot to USB, and then you should find that your PS2 starts up in this mode, and it's this mode we're going to need it in to get the Modbo boot menu working. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look to see what we need in order to get this to work. So it's quite simple really. All we need is a USB stick. Now the USB stick you use doesn't really matter. The apps themselves and the boot menu are a couple of megs at most. So even if you've got an old 1 gig USB stick kicking around from back in the day, that should suffice really for what we want to use it for. In my instance, I've got a SanDisk 32 gig USB 3 thingy. That works fine as well. It really doesn't matter what you use, to be honest. Any USB stick these days should be fine. If you take a look in the description of the video, I've sent you a link to this system.zip file. This is the Modbo boot menu itself. So essentially what we're going to do then is we're going to come down here, and we've got the USB stick we're going to use here plugged into the PC. It's drive F, but by if you're just running along at home, what you're going to want to do first of all is format this USB stick. So right click the drive, format, you'll see the usual Windows format box come up here. File system is FAT32, allocation unit size, default allocation size is fine, volume label, call it anything you want. I call mine Modbo, which is fine. Quick format is more than enough. Hit start, confirm that yeah, you're happy for that to happen. You'll get a message saying format complete. Say OK, close the dialog box, and now if we go into drive F, our USB stick is completely empty, which is what we want. So once you've downloaded the Modbo boot menu files, you'll get this system.zip file on your computer. What you can do is extract that using whatever tool you want, whether you use Windows or whether you use 7-zip like I do. Just extract those files out, and if we go into the zip file itself, you'll see there's a folder called system, and all the various files are in there. So we've just extracted that folder, and we're going to copy that across to our USB stick. So that system folder now is in the root of our F drive, our USB stick, If we go into there, we'll see all the various files are included. And for now, I'm just going to switch this back to detail so you can see indeed the same view we had in 7-zip there. We can see all the files within that system folder. Okay, excellent. So far so good. We're happy enough with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to unplug our USB stick and we're going to go back to our PS2. We're going to insert the USB stick and we're going to reset the machine. So all we've done there is copied that system folder to our freshly formatted USB stick and plugged it in the PS2. And now we should hopefully get a slightly different outcome. And we do. There you go. So for all intents and purposes now this is working and you can go ahead and use it. So by default it comes with a couple of included applications already installed. So we can see here, look, we have OPL, Open PS2 Loader, version 0.93, HD Loader 0.8C, we have ULaunch Elf, and then the final icon there is PS2 System Browser. So these apps here are fairly old, and you could argue whether you want OPL and HD Loader on the same thing. I know back in the day there was a bit of a debate as to which one was better and which one people preferred. I'm sure that's still probably the case. But for me, I think OPL is still relatively recently sort of in maintenance, in development. So HD Loader, I think, these days is fairly obsolete. So we don't really need them both. And I will be showing you later on how we can replace these apps. OPL is the one that I personally use. And then we've got ULaunch Elf, which is a useful little thing. So that's basically used for, it's like a little file browser type thing. You can use that for copying things between memory cards, USB sticks, and of course you can use it to launch ELF files, which are effectively PlayStation equivalents to executable files that you'd have on Windows. So you download a little program, little utilities and things for Windows, they come as .exe files typically. Effectively the equivalent of that on a PS2 is a .elf file. If you're a Mac user, the equivalent to that would be a .dmg. So it's effectively the PS2 equivalent .elf, and that's what this is. So you can copy ELF files to USB stick. You can use ULaunch Elf to browse USB sticks or memory cards or wherever you have them, and you can launch those files directly from there. So think of it a bit like Windows Explorer for PS2. It's a nice little utility. HD Loader, as I say, is a fairly old hat these days. I think OPL is essentially something that you'd use if you have a hard drive installed in your PS2, and we'll go through that at some point, because back in the day when I had mine, I had a hard drive in the back of it and it was fantastic. It's like load times and everything completely cut down, and obviously you could load your library onto an internal hard disk and it was just fantastic, and it saved wear and tear on your lasers. But yes, and then finally we have this end choice here, this PS2 System Browser. If you hit that, it'll essentially exit out back into the default browser system config. So you can get out of there if you like. If you want to get back in, just reset the system. And you'll see shortly it'll come back up. And basically, if you want to launch one of these, highlight it so you'll see when that particular app is active, you'll see the name of it at the bottom of the screen there. So Open PS2 Loader 0.93, you'll notice it has a little blue border and a green tick. If we move along to HD Loader, ULaunch Elf, so you can see that's how you know which one's selected, which one's active. To launch it, hit X, and it'll go away and basically launch the app. There you go. And as it said, this one is 0.93. Yes, it is 0.9.3. So that's a fairly old version. I think the current version, or at least the latest version I found online, was 1.1.0. But we'll show you how you can update this. And so what we'll do is we will go back to Windows. We'll unplug our USB stick and we'll plug it back in to the PC. Okay, so we'll go into our drive F and we can see there, look, our system file is still there. So in here are the various files that the boot menu uses to work. So it's fairly straightforward. We'll just come into here and we'll show you with the icons like that, so you can see a little bit better what's going off. So first of all, you can see here, look, the icons that are used in the dashboard. So we have app 1 idle and selected. So essentially you've got 2 icons for each app. So what it's doing is, when the app isn't highlighted, it's showing the idle icon. Once you've highlighted the app you want in the menu, what it's then doing is it's swapping out the image for the selected one. So you can see there, look, this one has the border around the edge and it has the green tick. And it has that for each app. So you can see we have 2 for OPL, we have 2 for HD Loader, we have 2 for ULaunch Elf, and we have 2 for the system browser option. We also have another bitmap image down here, and this one is for the background for the menu. So you'll notice it here, look, we had that PS2 console in the background. That's essentially what this is. So if we take a look at the image properties, you'll see here, look, that it's a 512 by 384 resolution. It has a 24-bit colour depth, and it's basically a Windows format bitmap. So it's a bog standard bitmap image, basically. You can change it if you want. You can do what you like with it, as long as it conforms to 512 by 384, and it's a 24-bit colour depth Windows bitmap image. You can change it to whatever you like. Likewise here with the icons, the app icons, you can change these too. So we'll go through that shortly. The main thing, though, to be honest, is this collection of ELF files. So these are the various application files. Boot, I think, are the files for ULaunch Elf, HD Loader, OpenPS2 Loader, so on and so forth. ThumbsDB is just an internal Windows file, which it uses to cache these icons here, so don't worry about that. The main thing we're interested in, though, is this config.txt file. So this is basically how everything hooks together. And you'll see here, look, so we have app 1, we have a path to the ELF, so a path to the actual application file itself. We have the description, so app 1 desk here, and we'll see the name of the application. We have that for the 3 apps that are installed, 1, 2 and 3. You'll notice they're also in the same order they're on the menu. So first we had OpenPS2 Loader, the second tile was HD Loader, the third tile was ULaunch Elf, and the end tile, the fourth one, was the PS2 system browser. Yeah, so it's fairly self-explanatory. I have tried adding an extra one in here to see if you could do 5, 6, but it doesn't work, it just ignores it. But what you can do, if you want to sneak an extra app in, rather than having the PS2 system browser here, you can actually replace this OSD-sys with the path of another ELF file, change the name, and it will actually work as an option to launch a 4th application rather than quitting back to browser. So if you want to sneak an extra app in there, if you want 4 apps rather than 3, and you're not bothered about the exit path into the standard system browser, then by all means you can change app 4. But we'll go through this now. So basically, this boot menu has been around as long as the Modbo 5 itself, so the apps that are included with it are fairly old hat. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how you can update those apps. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to update our OpenPS2 Loader software to the latest version 1.1.0. So we've got 0.9.3 on there at the moment. So what I've done is I've gone away and I've downloaded OpenPS2 Loader version 1.1.0 already. And it comes with a few included files, but basically credits is detailed changelog, license, and the README files are essentially just informational text files, which are included with the release, which is fair enough. The only thing, though, that the app needs to run and function is this one here, this OpenPS2 Loader.elf. So it's a standalone ELF file. So what we can do is we can copy that to our USB stick. And I'm just going to paste it in. Okay, so we are going to be replacing OPM PS2LD.elf, and if we look in our config text file, we know that because if we look here under app 1 for Open PS2 Loader version 0.9.3, we can see here, look, that the name of the elf it's pointing to is OPM PS2LD.elf. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the name of that. So this is the original elf file here. I'm going to delete that because that's the old version we don't need anymore. So I'm going to say yes to confirm the deletion. And then our version 1.1.0 I'm going to rename. And there we go. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into our config file and I'm just going to update this version, because of course we've updated it now, to 1.1.0, and I'm going to save the config file. Close that, and then that should be that. So if I remove our USB stick and I go back to the PS2, I'm going to plug the USB stick back in and I'm going to reset the machine. This is then going to relaunch the boot menu from the USB stick. And we can see here, look, now, if we look at the bottom, so Open PS2 Loader version 1.1.0, so the name tag at the bottom of the screen has changed. If we go into OPL by launching it, by hitting the X key on the controller, we can see it's also updated that loading message. And we can see there now, look, that looks quite different to what we were seeing before. If we go into About, we can see there, look now, that Open PS2 Loader is version 1.1.0. So that's cool. So our app is updated and everything there now is fine. So it's as simple as that, really. So it's just a case of copying the new elf, updating that config file, and jobs are good. So it really is quite simple to do. So what we'll do next then is we'll show you how you can replace an app, and that itself is fairly straightforward as well. So we'll reboot the machine to the boot menu and we'll show you that at the moment, so we have our updated Open PS2 Loader, but we also have HD Loader. As I say, personally I'm not going to use that if we've got Open PS2 Loader on the stick. I don't have a hard drive in this machine at the moment, so HD Loader itself isn't going to load anyway, but you can see it's version 0.8c, you can see the app launches and it works. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to replace that with another little utility that I quite like. So I'm just going to plug our USB stick back into our computer. I'm going to go back to screen grab, so you can see here, hopefully, that our USB stick is present once more. If we go into System. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to replace HD Loader with another little application that I prefer. Now you can replace this with anything you like. If we go back into config.txt and we take a look at HD Loader, we can see the app it's pointing to here is hdl.elf. So HD Loader 0.8c. So what we're going to do is we're going to find hdl.elf and we're going to delete it because we don't need it anymore. Bye bye. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace it with a little memory card management utility called MC Annihilator. This is quite a nice little application, quite a nice little utility. And basically what it does is it allows you to format PS2 memory cards. So if you've got one that's full of crap and you just want to wipe it, you can do. If you've got an old memory card that's been used for VMAC boot and you just want to revert it to stock, you can use it to do that. If you've got a slightly flaky memory card that's corrupt, you can use it to basically format corrupt memory cards and try to recover them. It's quite a nice little thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that. Okay, now what you can do if you come into here, so you have various files and bits and pieces. It's quite a, you know, there's a lot of supporting stuff here. Now what I've done before now is you can sort of just copy the ELF and the accompanying language file. That will work. And you can paste it into the root of there and then update this. But obviously if you've got an application that's got a lot of files with it, so some applications have a lot of accompanying files. It's not just the ELF file, there's lots of other little bits and pieces as well. There's nothing stopping you copying it into the root of that system folder, changing the name of the executable and it working. It will, but what will happen is it's going to get very unruly in here, because you're just going to end up with stacks of files, folders. You're not going to know what anything is. You may end up where two apps share a file name between them, and then you're going to, it's going to ask you to overwrite, and then it's going to break. It's just going to cause mayhem. So, what I'd recommend you do is, just as a bit of housekeeping really, is copy things into folders. So I'm just going to take this MCA folder and I'm going to paste it into the system folder. Okay, so MC Annihilator app is now living in this MCA folder. Okay, so what we can do though is we can change this to point to subfolders. So rather than it looking for hdl.elf inside the root of the system folder, so we need to change the app name. So obviously we're getting rid of HD loader, so we're looking at MCA underscore v20a.elf. Okay, but obviously it's not in the root of this folder, it's inside this MCA subfolder. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell it it's inside the MCA folder / the name of our executable. So if we look on our USB stick here, inside the system folder we have this MCA folder, and that's the name of our ELF file. So all we need to do is we need to tell it it's inside the MCA folder / name of the app, and make sure you leave the ELF extension on the end. If you forget the ELF extension, what will happen is it'll say it can't find the application. Okay, so we've done that, and then we need to update the name of the app so it appears correct in the menu. So that now, for all intents and purposes, will work absolutely fine, and that will launch our MC Annihilator from inside that MCA folder. So it's keeping everything nice and tidy, it's keeping everything nice and neat, and it will launch our app. That will be fine. However, we still have, remember, these icons. And at the moment it's going to show the HD loader icon for our new MC Annihilator app, and that's not right, is it? That's not, it's just going to get confusing. So we can replace these bitmaps, remember. So these, if I show you the specifications, these are 96 by 96 pixel, again 24-bit color depth Windows format bitmaps. What I've done is, in preparation for this, I've actually made a couple of new tiles. So 96 by 96 aren't, it's not particularly big. Okay, you're not going to be able to do an awful lot. So I've just made some really basic replacements. I'm just going to copy and paste those into our system folder on our USB stick to overwrite those original two files. I'm going to say yes, I want to replace, and you'll see now that our HD loader icons have been replaced by our new MCA icons. Okay, so that now should work absolutely fine. And if we go back to our PS2, I'm going to remove the USB stick from the PC. I'm going to plug it into our PS2 and I'm going to reset. Okay, so boot menu's going to load, and hopefully this time, yes, there you go. So we can see there now, look, we have some new icons on our boot menu. And also, if we scroll across now to MCA, you can see that we have the little tick and that now so essentially that's now behaving in the same manner as what the other icons are doing. So we can see when it's active. We also see that the tag at the bottom of the screen there has now changed to MC Annihilator version 2.0A. If we hit our X key to launch that, there we go. And our new app has launched. So rather than seeing HD Loader, we're now getting MC Annihilator, which is great. So we can see we have a memory card in slot 1. It's my old FreeMac boot that I've been messing around with on the PSX. And basically I want to format it. It's an 8 meg memory card. Am I sure I want to do it? Yes. Completed successfully. Press X to continue. Okay, excellent. That's it. That's done. So there you go. It's as simple as that. So if I reset the PS2, like I said, it's quite a nice little utility. And it's something that to me has more value than what HD Loader would have done, because I would never have used it. So if I go now into System Browser, we should see that our memory card has absolutely nothing on it. No data. There you go. So that works quite nicely. So we've upgraded an app to the latest version. We've changed an app to something that we'd find more useful. So that's it really. In a nutshell, that is the PS2 boot menu. So what we'll do next is, we'll just show you again that it comes back up when we reset. Perfect. So next we'll go through some troubleshooting and we'll show you what happens when things aren't quite working as you'd expect them to. Okay, and the first thing we're going to address here is what happens when you get something weird happening like this. So you've copied your app, you've made your new icons, you've copied everything to your USB stick and you're happy that it should work. But then when you do launch it, you see something like this and the icon itself is missing. So we can select the app, and if we try to launch the app it'll probably work, but we're not getting the icon. And the reason for that is probably because of the image format you have your new thumbnail in. So remember, it needs to be a Windows format bitmap file, so a .bmp extension. It has to be 96 by 96 pixels and the color depth needs to be 24-bit. Okay, now when I started messing around with this I thought, oh well, maybe it'll be a 16-bit image. So I copied my files to it and saved it as a 16-bit bitmap image. Once I copied it to the USB stick, it didn't work and I got this weird icon instead of what I was expecting to see. So if that's happened to you, go ahead, just resave your thumbnail icon as 24-bit bitmap, and the thing then when you refresh it should work absolutely fine. So remember, it needs to be a bitmap with a .bmp extension, 96 pixels by 96 pixels. It needs to be a 24-bit color depth and it needs to be Windows format and not OS2. Providing you do that, you should work fine and you should start to see your icon as we did when we showed you in the tutorial itself. Okay, so another popular one will be you have everything seemingly up and running okay. When you try to launch the app itself, you'll get this error message in red where it says that the particular file itself wasn't found. Now you can see at the top there we have a path MCA/MCA_V20A. So let's put this USB stick back in the computer and let's see where we went wrong. Okay, so we've ended up here, look, system, and if we go back into our config.txt file, okay, we've got a couple of issues here we can see. So we've replaced our app, and indeed we have the app copied into a subfolder called MCA, and the file itself is in the correct place. However, what we've got here is we've got a backslash. It needs to be a / to denote the folder, and we've also missed our .elf extension. So we had two issues there. One, we need to separate folders with a /, not a /. I know old habits die hard if you're a Windows user, but yes, it needs to be a /, and it needs to be .elf as the file extension. If you don't have the ELF on the end of the extension, even if the path and the application name is correct, without the extension on the end, it won't load the file. So if we unplug that now and go back to our PS2, I'll put the USB stick in and reset. Okay, and we try and launch MCA again. This time, everything works fine. So there's a couple of things to watch out for. If you are changing apps and you are copying things into subfolders rather than just copying it into the root and changing the name, make sure you're using the / to donate the folder structure rather than back. And also make sure that you remember to include that .elf extension. It's caught me out a couple of times while I've been messing around because I've forgotten to put the ELF on the end of it and it doesn't find the app. So there's two things to watch out for there if you're replacing the apps. So that should work fine, providing you make sure you're using those / and you remember in those file extensions. And finally, with all that said, that is everything now that you need to know about the Modbo boot menu. And just to show you one last cool little trick, remember we said about the desktop background, you can change it, and indeed that's exactly what we've done here. So you will end up with a bit of a border, but as you can see there now, if you want to change it to something that you think is a little bit more preferable to the default icon there with the PS2 in the background, you can do that if you well like. So thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you found this really useful. Hope you've had a good Christmas and all the best for 2023. I will see you with a PSX video, I think, next. We're going to pick the project back up. There's a reason I've been messing around with FreeMcBoot, because there's something I need to check, and we'll be going into exactly what that is, how we do it on the next video in the not too distant future. So thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember to comment, rate, like and subscribe. If you've got any questions, pop them below and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll see you soon. For me for now, it's bye-bye. Hope life treats you well. Stay safe and I'll see you soon. Many thanks for watching then, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then why not check out these recommendations below. Also, please remember to comment, rate and, of course, subscribe to the channel if you found this useful. We've plenty more content on there and there's lots more to come.